Downdragapha again. This is a review of another of the best Pokemon games ever. Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness. Just looking at the box art gives you a good idea of how cool this game is. In this sequel to Pokemon Colosseum, the basic plot of Snag and Purify is taken up a notch, as are the Shadow Pokemon themselves. The story takes place 5 years after the fall of Cypher. The red-haired hero, Michael, is just like in any other Pokemon game, young and naive, kind-hearted, but not very interesting. After the Shadow Pokemon incident, his father had been working on a way to purify the tainted monsters and return them to their natural state. Unfortunately, it seems like he died at some point while working on the project, leaving Michael's mother and the good-natured Professor Crane to finish the device. It seems they've also recreated the Snag machine and asked Michael to help test it. Before he has the chance, Professor Crane is captured by what look like scrawny stormtroopers. These are Cypher peons, confirming Crane's suspicions that Cypher is rebuilding. After a quick battle resulting in snagging the peon's Teddiursa, they take Crane away, leaving the rest of the team in shock. It's up to Michael to rescue Crane and find all the Shadow Pokemon, bringing down Cypher once again. From here on, it's really just the same plot as Colosseum. Follow Cypher, battle, snag, purify. Although there are several significant differences. Shadow Pokemon are much stronger now. Each one knows one or more Shadow moves, which vary in strength and effect, but all are super effective against any non-Shadow Pokemon, giving them a huge advantage. Shadow attacks are weak against other Shadow Pokemon, so that could be used to your advantage in one way or another. Also, further on in the game, Cypher trainers have more than one Shadow Pokemon, making things a bit more complicated. At the very end, the Cypher boss has 6 Shadow Pokemon. 7, really, but more on that later. One of the best improvements from Colosseum is development of the Cypher characters, particularly the 3 top execs. Not only are they much closer to real people, they have motivation beyond just greed and power. Actually, most of the characters are well developed. As in many video games, there are typically over-exaggerated and bizarre, but their zaniness fits in with the story. Michael doesn't have a sidekick, but he does have an annoying little sister, who for some reason always speaks in the third person. Whatever. And of course, the most memorable character from Colosseum was brought back, Mirror B. He doesn't really fit into the story, but if you miss snagging a Shadow Pokemon anywhere, it somehow ends up in his possession, and then you snag it from him. His outfit has been updated, as well as his battle music. Of all the unnecessary, overblown stereotypes in any video game, Mirror B is my absolute favorite. I don't know why, he just seems so out of place and yet fits in so perfectly. It's kind of surreal. The setting has certainly changed quite a bit from Colosseum. Some places are still there, like Pyrite Town, Agate Village, Phoenix, and of course Mount Battle, but they took away the best place, the Under. The new locations like Gadeon Port, Cypher Key Lair, and Citadark Island are okay. By far the best new setting is the SS Libra. In the middle of the desert, you find the remains of an enormous cargo ship that had disappeared from the middle of the ocean. How did it get to the desert? Well, in the opening clip of the game, we see the SS Libra crossing the sea. Suddenly, the ship is surrounded by helicopters, and a huge shadowy figure descends upon the helpless crew. This is the most deadly of all Shadow Pokemon, Shadow Lugia. Lugia, codename XD001, was designed to resist purification, making it the ultimate Shadow Pokemon. It uses its dark powers to lift the SS Libra clear out of the water, carrying it off into the night. Professor Crane was kidnapped so that Cypher could use his knowledge to perfect XD001, who for some reason drops the ship in the middle of the desert. By the end of the game, XD001 is at full strength, making it extremely difficult to snag. As I mentioned before, the Cypher boss has a full party of Shadow Pokemon, but before you can battle him, you must fight Lugia. Luckily, Lugia is on his own, so you only have to worry about him. Still, facing 7 Shadow Pokemon in a row is tough, and you definitely want to prepare. He also has Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres, along with 3 other fairly strong Pokemon. With the exception of Lugia, and maybe the other legendary birds, snagging in this game is pretty easy. Much easier than catching a wild Pokemon at the same level. Purifying is also easier, with the new Purify Chamber, where you place Shadow Pokemon and regular Pokemon in a circle, and rather than spend hours battling with the Shadow Pokemon to lower the Shadow meter, the other Pokemon automatically purify it, with speed depending on the elements and arrangement of the regular Pokemon. It's kinda complicated. If you want, I can explain it in more detail. The Pokemon available to snag in Gale of Darkness are mostly from Generation 1, ranging from Pidgeotto to Snorlax, Beedrill to Lapras, and, as I mentioned earlier, the 3 legendary birds. 4 including Lugia, but he's not from Generation 1. My favorite little twist to the typical Pokemon formula is your first Pokemon. Traditionally, you have to choose one of the 3 starter Pokemon offered, the choices being water, fire, or grass. In Colosseum, you always have Espeon and Umbreon. In Gale of Darkness, your starting Pokemon is Eevee, meaning you can choose from 5 evolutions, each with a different element. Vaporeon for water, Jolteon for electric, Flareon for fire, Espeon for psychic, and Umbreon, dark. This is also good for playing multiple times with different teams. I said in my Colosseum review that Gale of Darkness is a typical sequel, taking an incredibly original idea and beating it to death. That isn't really how I feel about this game. Truth is, I love it. It's detailed, engaging, and unique in its own way. The music is good, not quite as good as Colosseum, but then nothing is. It is, however, honest effort, which is more than I can say for most sequels. But that's what Pokemon does best. In every generation, there is a follow-up game, Yellow, Crystal, Emerald, Platinum, that has the same basic premise, but with a different twist. And their remakes, Fire Red and Leaf Green, and Heart Gold, Soul Silver, I'm sure, are excellent, nostalgic even. There are plenty of features that set Gale of Darkness apart from other games. I've covered some of them, but if you'd like to hear more, let me know. Also, if you have any questions about any Pokemon game, I can probably answer them. Thanks for listening.